So, 27 days away from the election now, and I am more bullish on Donald Trump's chances than I have been since the switch at the White House. Yes, Kamala won the summer. After the coup, we had the launch. The media wind was at her back, but that's all over now. Donald Trump is winning the fall, and he's winning October. He's winning down in the Sun Belt. He's winning in Pennsylvania, and shockingly, he's winning in the Rust Belt blue wall states that carried him to the White House in 2016 as well. Kamala, on the other hand, has got a problem. Several, actually, and her campaign knows it. The problem with an untested candidate that knows she's in trouble is naturally you start to press, and you start making mistakes when you start to press, and she is making mistakes. She is answering questions without answering a question. She was asked for the second time in a day if she would do anything differently than Joe Biden if she was elected. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Polling shows that a lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election, and that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the President's administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of... But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
Okay. What you just heard is actually kind of sad. What you just witnessed is sad. That's Stephen Colbert running cover for Kamala Harris, trying to give her a chance to clean up the mess she made earlier in the day when she couldn't answer that question. She couldn't get through it. Kamala is a woman that is in way over her head right now. And what you just heard was a parody of a politician's answer, something that you'd see on The Simpsons or something like that. But we've actually seen this before with another Democrat who was used to cushy, cozy, local interviews in his home state until he got totally exposed in 1980 on the big stage.
Why do you want to be president?
Well, were I to make the announcement and to run, the reasons that I would run is because I have a great belief in this country.
Okay, and that went on and on from there. That essentially ended Ted Kennedy's run for the White House in 1980, ultimately helped doom Jimmy Carter as well. Ronald Reagan would beat him in that election, and we've seen that before too. Candidates who are back on the ropes doing strange, foolish things because they're pressing. You might remember another Massachusetts candidate, Mike Dukakis, right? In that foolish little helmet when he was at that tank factory, or John Kerry, another Massachusetts politician. I'm not selecting these, by the way, because I happen to be from Massachusetts, but remember him with the Livestrong bracelet, windsurfing or trying to windsurf off Martha's Vineyard? Here's a Republican, George Bush Sr. He went to a grocery store in 1992 and he couldn't figure out the scanner, and he asked, when did supermarkets get these scanners? And the woman said the late 1950s. It was a really embarrassing moment. George W. Bush, H.W. Bush would go on to lose to Bill Clinton in that election. Joe Biden, on the other hand, he's not pressing at all. He's been having a ball at the beach all summer long, and Donald Trump was just asked about it.
He has one ability I don't have. Yeah. He sleeps. He can sleep. This guy goes on a beach, and he lays down on one of those, 6-ounce, they weigh 6 ounces and you can't lift it. Yeah. They're meant, no, they're meant for children, young people, and old people to lift. Yeah. They're aluminum, hollow aluminum. Yeah. They weigh very little, and he can't lift. And somebody convinced him he looks good in a bathing suit. He has an ability to fall asleep while on camera. He can lie down on one of those things, and in minutes, he's stone cold out.
All right, so Trump actually makes a pretty good point there. By the way, I don't look good in a bathing suit. It's tough to do. But to Trump's larger point, what happened to looking strong when you're in public, right? If you're president, remember Ted Kennedy's brother, JFK, Jack Kennedy? The guy was addled with all kinds of ailments. He had Addison's disease. But in public, he was always smooth, strong, put together. Ronald Reagan was the same way. A little later in the day, Kamala and her team also thought it would be a good idea, after being criticized for the last 10 days for her response to Hurricane Helene and the thousands that are still struggling right now and the thousands more that face the exact same thing as we speak with Hurricane Milton in Florida, she thought it would be a good idea to kick back and have a beer.
Would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay. This was... Now, we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You were Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
Okay, so cheers. There you go.
Cheers.
There you go. Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee,
The
Wisconsin.
champagne and beers.
There you go.
All right, so nothing against Miller High Life, but actually I've got a lot against Miller High Life for the purposes of this segment right here. First of all, that's a really odd choice. And when I thought about it, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, maybe she's trying to appeal to like working class Americans and all of that, instead of going with like a Coors Light or a beer from California, you know, like a Sierra Nevada from her home state. Maybe she doesn't like beer, so maybe she just picks something. I think it's better than like drinking a Cosmo or having wine with her husband Doug, like we saw on SNL a couple days ago. That would look really bad. But why'd she choose Miller? Well, I thought about it for another minute. Turns out Miller is brewed in Wisconsin, a key battleground state that she has to win if she wants to be president. And right now, she is losing in Wisconsin. Everything with this campaign is manufactured and absolutely fake. She doesn't like the champagne of beers. She wants to win Wisconsin. In another interview on the same day, Kamala said, one of the silliest things I've ever heard a politician say.
Ultimately, I do believe that this is an election that is about strength versus weakness.
Yeah.
And weakness as projected by someone who puts himself in front of the American people and does not have the strength to stand in defense of their needs, their dreams, their desires.
Okay, so the guy that literally took a bullet on July the 13th in Butler Township, Pennsylvania, the guy who then stood up with his fist in the air shouting, "Fight, fight, fight," is the weaker candidate according to Kamala. The man whose unprecedented lawfare, an arrest, a mugshot, 2 impeachments, Donald Trump is somehow the weaker candidate. It's like I said, Kamala is pressing, and when you press, you make mistakes. If I'm Kamala's team, I tell her, listen, Madam Vice President, you don't call the guy that just got shot in the head weak. That's the one thing you don't call him. You can call him literally anything else, but you can't call him weak just weeks after he got shot in the head. But it didn't stop there. The out-of-control Kamala Walz media tour continued for the Harris campaign in the state of California, where beta male running mate Tim Walz, Minnesota governor, actually said out loud that he supports doing away with the Electoral College. Now, why would Tim want to get rid of the Electoral College? Well, maybe it's because the most populated states in the country are blue, and the total population of the 25 biggest cities in this country make up over 10% of America's population, meaning no more Electoral College, no more checks and balances, permanent Democrat rule forever. So right now we've got this coup in progress, and it's coming from a constellation of unelected government employees and their counterparts in the once dominant media, loyal above all else to the Democrat Party, to the permanent class in Washington, and of course, to keeping their jobs. They want to keep their jobs, and that will all change if Donald Trump wins in November, and they know it. Democracy doesn't mean a lot to the Washington class. It's always been about maintaining power, staying in power. The left is also scared right now because more Americans currently identify as Republican versus Democrat. We've got more registered Republicans in this country for the first time since polling began. It's never been set up this good for a Republican in November. The bottom line, there are a lot of ways to measure the health of a country. Life expectancy, the divorce rate, military, housing costs, the value of a dollar, the stock market, public safety, and by every single one of those measures, literally, the Biden-Harris administration has failed. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the single most destructive force in American history. In just 4 years, they've fundamentally changed America. And the Democrat Party deserves Kamala, but the rest of us don't. But if she wins in November, maybe we do.